Hi everybody, Steve here at Sunnylands in Rancho Mirage, California, and we're here this morning. I'm here with Jim, and we were hoping to visit the Annenberg's final resting places. They have crypts here on their property, but unfortunately we just discovered that the crypts are not open to the public. You can take one of the tours, I think it was $21, and they drive you around the estate. You don't get to go into the house, but they drive you around the estate. And he said you might be able to see the crypts off in the distance, but they don't allow you to walk over to them. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that today. The grounds here are still really beautiful, so I thought you might want to see some of what we're able to see today here for free. We're not going to pay to take the tours today, but they do have a section here that's completely free and open to the public, and you can walk around the gardens, which are really nice. These are desert gardens. If you're not familiar with Walter Annenberg, he was one of the most influential billionaire media moguls of the 20th century. He was also a philanthropist and a U.S. ambassador during the Nixon administration. He may be best remembered, though, for creating the National TV Guide magazine. According to its history, Lee Wagner first published the local magazine called Television Guide back in 1948, and 5 years later sold it to Annenberg, who turned it into the popular national publication that it became. On April 3, 1953, Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz's newborn son, Desi Arnaz Jr., was on the very first cover. If you're a baby boomer, then I'm sure you grew up with the TV Guide just like I did. The historic Annenberg estate is called Sunnylands, and it's located on the corner of Bob Hope Drive and Frank Sinatra Drive in Rancho Mirage, California, about 3 miles or so south of the I-10 freeway. Then you pass Dinah Shore Drive and Gerald Ford Drive to get here. It was completed in 1966, and architecturally, Sunnylands is considered by many to be an American mid-century modern masterpiece. Last December, on a very beautiful sunny day, Jim and I decided to visit the grounds. We were disappointed to learn that their grave sites are not open to the public, but the Sunnylands Center and Gardens offers art and history exhibits and quite a few other free things to do that made the trip definitely worthwhile. And I've been waiting for the right time to share our visit with you. Since nothing is open right now and none of us are leaving the house unless we have to because of this current worldwide pandemic, I can't think of a better time to share it than now. In addition to being famous for its architecture, the estate is also very well known for the number of famous people who have visited or stayed here. Back in the 1960s, President Eisenhower was one of the very first guests, and he was the first of many U.S. presidents to tee off on the estate's 9-hole golf course. In 1974, when President Richard Nixon resigned from office, he wrote his final State of the Union address from here, and in 1976, Frank and Barbara Sinatra were married here. They also happened to be neighbors and live just down the street. At the end of this video, I'll drive by Frank Sinatra's Rancho Mirage home, for those of you who haven't already seen it. The home itself is located behind very tall gates, and there's not a lot to see from the street, but there is an historical plaque out front, and it's fun to see how close it is to the Annenberg estate. Just inside the front doors of the center is this overhead map of the golf course and estate on the left and the center on the right. In the top right-hand corner, you'll see a section that hasn't been developed yet, and I'll point it out as I drive by later on the way to Frank Sinatra's former home. I'm guessing that it's there so no one can build right next to the estate. One of the guides here just pointed out to me that their grave sites are located right there on the golf course in that square-looking structure, the top center of the frame, just to the left of that sand trap. During the golf cart tour that travels along that road that you see there to the left, he says that you can see their final resting places off in the distance, but you just can't walk over to them. I'd be curious to know if any of you have taken this tour. The red dot near the bottom of the map is where I am right now. I discovered that there are pictures on their Find a Grave memorial page. As you can see, the photos were added by Tom Stansbury in 2014, so either he was given special permission to take the photos, or maybe at some point in the past they did allow visitors to get closer to their crypts or vaults. Walter died on October 1st, 2002 at the age of 94, and his wife Leonore died March 12, 2009 at the age of 91. Even though this is just the visitor center and not the house itself, it's still pretty impressive. And there's displays and art and exhibits everywhere. The Palm Springs desert area here is known for its celebrities, Its golf courses and golf tournaments, its art, and especially its modern and mid-century modern architecture. And this estate is a great example of all of those things. Not to mention the spectacular views. I've always loved the desert and desert landscaping. And this is one of the most beautiful reflecting pools and cactus gardens I've seen. And this area behind the center is just one of the areas where you can walk. And I think they have events and concerts here in the center lawn section. And I'll pan around here so you can see the back side of the center as well. And that's an outdoor cafe straight ahead. It's pretty early, so there aren't many people here yet. So that's Herb Alpert, the musician.
Yeah.
You sure?
Yeah.
So these are the... So which one is his? Oh, these are all his? I had no idea he was an artist, did you? See, we learned something today. Those are really nice. So how many of you remember Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass? One of his biggest hits, The Lonely Bull, was recorded back in 1962, and I just happened to hear it again the other day on my oldies radio station, and I added it to my Spotify oldies album that I just recently created. He earned 9 Grammy Awards during his career, co-founded A&M Records, and discovered one of my all-time favorite groups, The Carpenters. And here he is now in his 80s as an abstract artist. It's nice to see that some things and some people just keep getting better with age. We started our exploration this morning of the center grounds by walking along this circular path behind the center. It looks like they offer Tai Chi classes here as well. I would suggest visiting their website, sunnylands.org, before you come to check out the various events and activities they offer. I definitely think the gym could use one of their Tai Chi classes. So when we got here, they told us about this labyrinth. We were asking if there are places, trails to walk, and they told us about this labyrinth, so we were pretty excited about it. It sounded pretty interesting, and then we came over and realized it was, well, I'll show you. Not exactly what we were expecting. I guess we were both thinking it would be more like a maze with tall hedges. The sign says a labyrinth offers you a single path to the center. Some people come to a labyrinth with questions to ponder, others to slow down, some to meditate. I realize that speeding up the camera through this section is a bit ironic, but just think of it as speed meditation. If that's not already a thing, I'm sure it will be at some point. Oh, so it just takes you to the middle, it doesn't take you out. You feel enlightenment? Is that what you're feeling? This reminds me of the long lines at Disneyland to get onto the rides. I think Jim has been pondering whether or not he should take those Tai Chi classes. So right on the other side of the fence there, that's the actual property where their home is located on their private golf course, where they are also now buried. Now we're going to head over to the Desert Garden Walk, which is located between the street and the front of the center, which is where we came in. As I mentioned, this is the very first time I've ever walked along a labyrinth path, or even seen a labyrinth. Is this something any of you have done before? And if so, where? Back in the day, people like Jimmy Stewart, Ginger Rogers, Bob Hope, the Reagans, the royal family, anyone who was anyone, either visited, golfed, or stayed here at Sunnylands. And it's fun to walk the hallways and see the old photos and read about the history here. There's also a gift shop and a cafe here at the center as well. I try to walk at least a mile or two every single day, and I've been doing that nearly every day since college. It's pretty addictive once you get started. It's not unusual for me to walk more than 10 miles a day when I take my cemetery or city walks. How many of you also walk at least a mile or two every day? You really could spend the better part of a day here learning about the history that was made here and history that's still being made today here. But after a nice walk and a lot of exploration, we're going to head on now. And as promised, I'm going to drive by Frank Sinatra's former home here in Rancho Mirage. Making a right-hand turn here on Bob Hope Drive, I'm going to go to the corner and make another right-hand turn on Frank Sinatra Drive. Back in the 1950s and 60s, here in the US, and especially here in the desert, pink houses, pink furniture, pink appliances, and even pink brick walls were pretty popular. And possibly the most famous pink wall of all is the one here that surrounds the Annenberg estate. I could be wrong, but it seems to me that they've lightened up the pink a little bit over the years. But it's still a real landmark statement here in the desert, and a very nostalgic trip down memory lane for me. And up ahead, here's that empty buffer lot that I mentioned earlier that separates the Annenberg estate from the Tamara's Country Club, where Frank Sinatra's former Rancho Mirage home is located. It's usually a very busy street, and there's no parking, which makes it difficult to stop or to see much. But here are the famous gates. And here's the plaque indicating that it was Frank Sinatra's former home. It reads, Historic Preservation Commission, City of Rancho Mirage, in honor of Frank Sinatra, Old Blue Eyes, singer, actor, and consummate entertainer, home to Frank Sinatra, 1957 to 1995. If you're a fan of Frank Sinatra and you haven't already seen my visits to his former Palm Springs home and to his final resting place in Cathedral City, I'll put the links to those vlogs down below. And this week I'd like to thank my latest Patreon supporter, Gretchen Lang. Thank you, Gretchen, for your very generous pledge. I really do appreciate that. So if you enjoyed our brief visit, our brief tour here today, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with a friend. You might also enjoy these. So as always, thanks for sharing the memories, everyone.